Since the beginning of 2nd edition way back in 1984, the land and peoples of Grand Cathay have been referenced, whispered, and mentioned throughout the stories and lore of the world of Warhammer. Then in 2021, with the launch of Total War Warhammer 3, we finally got a fully fleshed out look at the lands in the east of the world, with the first wave of models reaching the tabletop in 2025, and being fully expanded in 2026 with the launch of the Reinforcement of Grand Cathay set. And in this video, we'll cover how the army works, what the units do, what makes them quite so dangerous on the tabletop, and cover a little bit of their controversy too. Now, before we get started, who are Grand Cathay? Well, the realms of Grand Cathay are very much a mirror to the lands of the Empire of Man. A society where the countryside is lush, green and prosperous, and where even simple peasants live lives a Bretonian probably couldn't dream of. The land is filled with floating islands and giant terracotta sentinels. It's the oldest human civilization in the world of the old world, ordered and ruled by literal dragons with an absolutely staggering level of bureaucracy. At its northern border stands the Great Bastion, a feat of engineering and magic that has stood for thousands of years, shielding the Empire from the relentless incursions of the forces of chaos. Whilst the nation embodies the philosophy of harmony between Yin and Yang, it currently faces its greatest trial. The Celestial Dragon Emperor and the Moon Empress have been absent for nearly 300 years, leaving their 9 draconic children to hold the realm together against both external horrors and internal schemes. The armies of Grand Cathay have sailed into the old world and landed with a bang, massively shaking up the gaming scene. So before we get into the detail of the rules, why should you play Cathay? What are they about? Well, the armies of Grand Cathay offer an incredible alternative human faction to the Empire, Bretonia, and the Warriors of Chaos. They're visually very distinctive, heavily inspired by the far east of our own world, and packed with intricate patterns and detailing unlike any other Warhammer army. This incredible video by Lorica Clothing looks at the inspiration and historical accuracy behind the armour. I definitely give it a watch. Playstyle wise, they have a lot of overlapping rules designed to combine together, and you'll need to maximize those synergies if you want to crush your opponents. Which brings us neatly onto the rules. Let's start by looking at some of the more common universal special rules found throughout the army. Most units make use of close order, and many units can be fielded as regiments and detachments. Check out the Empire Army Guide for more detail on how that works. Whilst Cathay might be a bit lighter on the number of universal special rules they use, they make extensive use of their own unique special rules instead. Units with Celestial Forged Armour give the wearer a ward save equal to its value, and allows wizards to wear it without impediment. Mastery of the Elemental Winds gives a wizard with the rule +1 to their casting values once per turn, as long as another wizard is within 6 inches. Will of the Dragons allows a unit to reroll failed panic tests when a friendly unit is destroyed within 6 inches of it, or if a friendly unit flees through it. Finally, some characters can harness the Elemental Winds. At the start of each turn, the Cathayan player needs to roll a dice. On a 1 or a 2, nothing happens as the winds remain calm. On a 3 or a 4, the winds of Yang blow strong, giving a wizard who knows the law of Yang +3 inches to their dispel range, as well as to any enchantments they cast. Those with the Will of the Dragon special rule also gain either +1 movement or +1 initiative. On a 5 or a 6, the winds of Yin blow instead, increasing the range of hexes and magic missiles cast by wizards who know the law of Yin by 3 inches. And those with the Will of the Dragon special rule can instead gain either +1 leadership or +1 weapon skill. Speaking of the laws of Yin and Yang, most wizards have to choose one or the other when mustering. The law of Yang is the law of the elements and the heavens, and contains 3 signature spells for wizards to choose from. The law of Yin is the counterpoint to Yang, focused on trickery, hexes, and assailments. Right, let's take a look at the Grand Army list and see what's available to you to muster. But before we get started, just a huge thank you to my Patreon supporters and YouTube members. You keep my Sky Lanterns up when Grand Cannons are raining down on me. You can join them and support the channel from just £3 a month. The list allows you to run a variety of different lords and heroes to lead the forces of Cathay. The Shigangan lords and magistrates and strategists, gatemasters and gatekeepers, as well as the magical astromancers. And of course, the incredibly special Cathayan dragons. The Shigangan are the dragon-blooded generals of Cathay, who are descendants of the celestial dragon himself. They ride the Great Spirit Longma, beautiful flying beasts, and come in 2 varieties. Lords, of which you can take 1 per 1,000 points, and generals, which you can take as many as you like, as long as they can fit into your list. The lords have slightly improved stat lines over the generals, and while both are wizards, the generals can only go up to level 2, whilst the lords can become level 3 or 4 wizards. They can draw spells from the battle magic, elementalism, illusion, or high magic spell laws, alongside either the law of Yin or law of Yang. These characters really want to get stuck into combat and make use of assailment spells where possible, so picking the right spell law matters a lot here. They also have impact hits, countercharge, and really decent weapon skills. The Gatemasters of the Celestial Cities lead the professional soldiers of Cathay, and their stat lines reflect that discipline. Their Harmony of Stone and Steel rule allows them to reroll failed leadership tests when reforming after running enemies down, restraining, pursuit, or redirecting charges. 1 gatekeeper in your army can also become your battle standard bearer. The magistrates of Grand Cathay wield the political and bureaucratic might of the Celestial Empire to outwit their enemies and coordinate Cathay's armies. They often command battles from atop Sky Lanterns, the giant floating platforms that drift over the battlefield, and will use fans, banners, and smoke to direct the troops below. Once per turn, they can allow a unit to fall back in good order instead of following up after combat. The Astromancers of the Celestial Court are the primary wizards of the Cathayan armies. The Supreme Astromancers begin as level 3 wizards, whilst regular Astromancers start at level 1 and both can upgrade to level 2 and 4. They also possess mastery of the elemental winds, helping nearby wizards cast more effectively. I think you want to run a couple of these together as they're quite cheap to put on the tabletop. Now finally, let's talk about the big beasties, the dragons. Now you can take 1 Cathayan dragon per 1,000 points, and at the moment there's only 1 available, Miao Ying, the Storm Dragon, centuries-old commander of the armies of the Great Bastion. Cathayan dragons have an incredibly unique set of special rules. They can be played in one of 2 forms. Human form, where they act as heavy infantry, or dragon form, where they become a full behemoth. During the command subphase of any of their turns, they can transform from one into the other. Upon transforming, they must be placed within 6 inches of the previous model, and not within an inch of a friendly model or 3 inches of an enemy model. They immediately regain D3 lost wounds, but do count as having moved, meaning they can't charge that turn, though they can act otherwise normally, so they still get to move, which is weird. Both forms also share wounds, so if one takes wounds, then you've got to mark it down across the units. If the dragon form is slain, the model instead reverts back into its human form and can no longer transform for the rest of the game. It does mean it will regain D3 lost wounds though. If they die in human form though, that's it. They're removed from the game. And honestly, with rules like this, I imagine we'll see another dragon pretty soon. My guess would be Miao Ying, but we'll see. So back to the currently available dragon. Miao Ying is also a wizard who knows 4 spells regardless of form from either the battle magic, elementalism, or high magic spell rules. When she's in her human form, she casts as a level 4 wizard, but as a level 2 wizard while she's in dragon form. Her mastery of the storm winds allows her to discard 2 random spells instead of the usual 1, and she can choose signature spells from any of the available laws she has, as well as spells from either the Yin or Yang, or take her own unique spell, the Storm Dragon's Fury. She can also upgrade units of Jade Warriors and Jade Lances into Celestial Dragon Guard, granting them +1 weapon skill and leadership. And if it wasn't enough already, anyone declaring a challenge against her has to pass a leadership test first, with modifiers depending on her current form. Oh, you also can't back down from the challenge, and you can't refuse one she issues. She has Celestial Armor 5+, Hatred against Chaos, and Magic Resistance -1. Crimety, that is a lot of rules. Oh, she's nearly 500 points as well, so she's going to be like a quarter of your army. This is kind of why I don't normally cover special characters in detail. They're incredibly dense. But if you do like the sound of her, she's absolutely the kind of model you're going to build your army around. I would especially make use of the Celestial Dragon Guard upgrades. Now, with the characters covered, let's look at any of the mounts they can ride. The Shigengan can only ride the Spirit Longma, they can't be dismounted, so they aren't available anywhere else. Gate Masters can ride Cathayan warhorses, which are heavy cavalry mounts with all the good horsey rules: first charge, counter charge, and swift stride. They also have Cathayan cataphracts as a rule, allowing them to count as charging after making a follow-up move. Very neat. Regular Cathayan horses have a similar profile, but only come with the countercharge and swift stride rules. Now, the truly ridiculous mount is the Sky Lantern. This thing isn't just a mount, it's a game-bending, floating war crime that's been nerfed repeatedly since release. The version in the original book isn't even accurate anymore, and thankfully it's no longer quite as absurd as it used to be. The Sky Lantern can be taken by a magistrate and acts as a beacon in the sky for other units. Units with bombardment weapons, like the rocket batteries, can use its line of sight instead. And because it's a large target, it can see over terrain and units. Very handy for a barrage. It can also attempt to disengage from combat by passing a leadership test, allowing it to fall back in good order instead of simply giving ground. And once per game, thankfully, it can perform a bombing run. You roll a dice, and depending on the outcome, you get to drop a bunch of bombs on your opponents, or potentially just a dud. The crew can also fire guns at nearby enemies, and after shooting, it can even make a reserve move, allowing it to reposition rapidly around the battlefield. So yeah, pretty crazy. That's all the character options available. And model-wise, all of them are just available in brand new plastic kits. Most of them are beautiful. For core units, you currently have 2 main options. Jade Warriors are the professional troops of Cathay. a solid infantry unit equipped with hand weapons and heavy armor. They must choose to take either halberds or shields. They can become drilled or stubborn and have the defensive stance special rule, allowing them to reroll armor saves of 1 unless they charged that turn. Your second option is the Peasant Levy. Now, despite the name, these aren't Bretonnian peasants. These are Grand Cathayan peasants. These people are thriving compared to Bretonnia. A Bretonnian peasant visiting Cathay would probably assume they'd accidentally become a Grail Knight. These troops can equip either long spears or war bows, and can even become ambushers, which is surprisingly useful. Long spears grant strike first when charged, and I wouldn't imagine you'll get too many hits even with the strike first, as they do only have a weapon skill of 2. Additionally, in the core role, if your general is a gatekeeper, you can also take Jade Lancers as a core choice. These are mounted Jade warriors with Cathayan cataphracts, swift stride, countercharge, and the Will of the Dragons rule. They also have great Jade Lances. And once again, all of these models are available in lovely plastic kits. For special choices, you can take additional Jade Lancers, as well as Crane Gunner teams. These are soldiers of Nan Gao, and they wield long-range crane guns. These are Strength 6, AP-2, 36-inch range weapons, and they fire it behind a tower shield, which another Nan Gao warrior is holding for protection. Iron Hail Gunners are another ranged option that are armed with shorter range 12-inch shots with multiple shots D3, or a bit more like shotguns as opposed to snipers. They ignore the modifiers for multiple shots and making stand and shoot reactions, meaning they're great at shredding nearby enemies. If you'd rather pepper enemies from a distance, you can also take up to 2 war machines per 1,000 points. First up is the Grand Cannon. This is a 48-inch range, strength 10 cannon that causes thunderous impact, slowing all models within 2d6 inches of the impact point by 1 inch and preventing swift stride. And yes, that does affect friends as well as foes. They also use all the usually wonderful chaotic cannon rules. I should probably do a deep dive on Warhammer war machines at some point. Let me add that to the list of things to do. The other artillery piece is the Fire Rain Rocket Battery. Each turn it can fire one of 2 missile types using the bombardment rule. You place the template where you want it to go, roll a scatter and artillery dice, and then pray to whichever deity handles black powder trajectories. Probably a dwarfen one. If they misfire, they use the black powder misfire table. These really benefit from Sky Lantern support for improved targeting. The Bastion rockets are ideal for smashing big monsters and dragons, as they can potentially do d6 wounds, whereas the standard rocket battery wants to annihilate blobs of infantry with the large blast template. And if they inflict even a single wound, the target has to take a panic test. Very nasty. Not gonna lie, bombardment weapons are hilariously unreliable, but I have a soft spot for them because they're completely ridiculous and I kind of love them. Either type of war machine can also hire an Ogre Mercenary Assistant. These allow the machine to reroll a misfire once per turn, or even fire twice. What the actual hell? Now, if your general is a magistrate, you can also take a Sky Lantern as a special choice. And if your general is a Shugengan, you can bring a mighty Cathayan Sentinel. These enormous animated statues stride across the battlefield, smashing apart infantry and monsters alike. Their deadly strike can grant either Killing Blow and Monster Slayer, or the Scything Blow for plus 2d3 hits against infantry hordes. Your Sentinel must also be one of several different types, either the Terracotta, Jade, Obsidian, Granite, or Warpstone, which each grants a different effect. One thing to note, whilst the kit is gorgeous, it's apparently a bit of a nightmare to build. And that wraps up the special section. Once again, all of it is brand new plastics. For rare choices, you can further reinforce the army with additional sky lanterns or sentinels. Now, one important thing to mention, the current Cathay rules have been released over a roughly 1 year period, meaning they're currently spread across 3 separate books, which is a little frustrating. The main body of rules can be found in the Grand Cathay Arcane Journal. However, the Peasant Levy, Astromancers, Crane Gunners, and Iron Hail Gunners are instead found in the Breaching of the Great Bastion Arcane Journal. It also contains the most up-to-date version of the Grand Army list, replacing the original one from the original Arcane Journal. It also includes an Army of Infamy called the Army of Land and Wind. Focused heavily around peasants, magistrates, and sky lanterns. Finally, Dawn of the Storm Dragon introduces another army of infamy, the Jade Fleet, allowing you to combine Empire units into your Cathayan army. Oh, and because a bunch of these rules were wildly overpowered upon release and got immediately abused, a huge chunk of printed material has actually been invalidated and updated through FAQs and errata documents. To be quite frank, it's all a bit of a mess. If you don't want to look like you're drafting your 3rd year dissertation the week before it's due, while sitting in the university library during your games, I definitely recommend checking out Old World Builder, the free army builder, to stay on top of the rules. The books obviously do contain fantastic artwork, lore, narrative missions though, so they're still worth picking up if you're interested in the general setting and want to play some of the missions and stuff like that. But if you're on a budget, they're definitely not essential at this point. Knowing Games Workshop, they'll probably compile them into a single army book about a week after this video comes out. Anyway, that's the armies of Grand Cathay. They're a very, very different take on the human factions of the old world, blending disciplined professional soldiery with dragons, magical artillery, floating war balloons, and giant animated statues. If you're looking to start a 1,000 point Cathayan army, the Grand Cathay Battalion box is an excellent starting point, maybe supplemented with a Shigengan Lord on Great Spirit Longma. Or alternatively, you can take a Gatekeeper if you want a battle standard bearer and access to the Jade Lancers as a core option. Either way gives you loads of room to expand to 2,000 points. And honestly, even grabbing 2 battalion boxes gets you surprisingly close to that 2,000 point maximum. I've added an Old World Builder list link in the description below if you'd like to get started with Cathay. You can take that and run with it. But there are loads of different directions you can take the army. As I mentioned before, you could run down the Miao Ying route, you could go just full professional force, or maybe even a massive peasant horde backed up by a bunch of sky lanterns, protecting a mighty sentinel. Honestly, I think that's what I might do. And as an aside, I really hope Games Workshop explores more regions outside of the old world itself, because there's loads of interesting stuff to dive into, and I think there's clear appetite for it. You've got raiders from Nippon, corsairs from Nagaroth, the kingdoms of Ind, the primal forces of the old ones south of Cathay. We've got ogres in the army book already. The hobgoblin Khanate are referenced constantly. We've even glimpsed tiger warriors. And of course, Cathay trained the very first Skaven assassins, who eventually went on to form Clan Eshin. There's a huge amount of potential here. So let's hope that the success of Cathay encourages Games Workshop to keep doing new and interesting things. Because frankly, I'll buy it all. And if you're in the UK and would like to get up to 25% off your Cathayan army, get them through Red October Games, link in the description. Once you've assembled your Cathayan force, if you want to come and play with me in a castle, check out warcastle.co.uk. We've only got a few tickets left for this amazing event that I'm putting on in Middleton Castle. Hopefully I can see you there. And if you want to watch some more army guides or even how to play Warhammer The Old World, I've got a bunch of videos that you can watch. One will be popping up on screen right about now.